You need to hope that your league mates are not watching this video because it's nice to talk some basic fantasy football draft strategy, right? But I've done the in-depth research here to talk about what nobody else is going to look at, and that is adjusting to your exact league settings for this next season. In my mind, it's almost going to be the most important thing that you can do. So we're going to talk about every small detail, starting off with if you're going to be playing in a non-PPR or a full PPR league. Now, I know y'all probably heard a lot about zero running back, right? I mean, it's the year of zero RB. Everybody loves to do it, but have you really looked at if you should be implementing this in a non-PPR format, in a half PPR, or is this just a full PPR league draft strategy? Because if you dive into the numbers here, I wanted to ask yourselves two things. Where are the elite level scores in a non-PPR format compared to a PPR league? And in a PPR league, you're going to see that it's well balanced through the entire top 24, right? You do definitely have a lot of wide receivers here, but I mean, it's kind of 50-50 between wide receiver, running back, maybe 60-40 in favor of wide receivers. So what I did is I tracked the top 24 flex options in a full PPR format from this past season, and you're going to see that 52% of those finishers were from wide receiver. And at the running back position, there were 39.1%. Of course, we had a few tight ends mixed in here, but overwhelmingly, those elite level players were well balanced in that full PPR league. However, if you go over to a non-PPR format, where are the top scorers in this type of league? In this type of league, the top scorers are actually overwhelmingly at RB. There are 58% of those top 24 flex options from a points per game perspective last season being from the running back position. This is a comparison to 39% in your full PPR format, and wide receiver drops from 52% down to 37% in a non-PPR league. So if you're playing in that non-PPR format, should you listen to these guys out here telling you to go zero RB, going through and slamming wide receivers earlier? No, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense, right? I mean, they're probably looking at something completely different for the league that you're actually in. And if we go through and ask ourselves the second question, not only where are the elite level scores coming from, that's going to be at wide receiver 1, running back 1, wide receiver 2, running back 2, but also where are the depth scores coming from? Who am I going to be wanting to put in my flex spot in a full PPR format versus a non-PPR league? So what we decided to do here is we decided to look at the top 60 flex options from a points per game perspective this past season. And there you actually had 56.7% of them being from the wide receiver position in a full PPR format. So this tells us, especially when wide receiver scoring is going to be more predictable and easier to find a discount later on in drafts, in that full PPR format, you should be planning on starting wide receivers in your flex. However, if you're going to go over to a non-PPR league, you'll actually see that the percentage of running backs inside the top 60 goes from 36% up to 55%. So it is completely flipped. You no longer want to be starting wide receivers in your flex spot. Instead, in that non-PPR format, you want to be going through and you want to be playing RBs in your flexes. So this data tells us a couple different things. One, in PPR leagues, you want to take wide receivers early because those top scores are going to come from the wide receiver position. And you want to be taking wide receivers often in the middle rounds as well, because you can expect that you're going to be playing wide receivers in your flex spots. However, if you're going to be going to a non-PPR format, that is almost going to be flipped, where you're more so wanting to take running backs early on because those are the elite level scores. And you also want to feel comfortable with the running backs that you'll be putting in your flex spot. And as we transition over to the starting lineup and how that is going to change your draft strategy, I do want to put a little asterisk on this video, right? You're not going to be using this video for those Underdog best ball tournaments. Y'all know I'm drafting on Underdog every single night on the live stream, and their wide receiver depth is going to be way more important, and we will give y'all in-depth Underdog strategy videos as well. But of course, if you're wanting to draft with us every single night on the stream, you can find the link to Underdog Fantasy in the comment section, in the description. And if you sign up to Underdog with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to to 100. Plus, you're going to get our 2023 fantasy football rankings, a free trial to flogfantasy.com. These are best ball drafts, so no time commitment at all during the season. So I drafted 700 teams that won $150,000 last year on Underdog. And also, I worked my butt off to get you all these special pick'ems. We have Josh Allen for more than less than half a passing yard week 1. We also have Anthony Richardson. That's going to be a site-wide special for more than less than half a passing yard week 1. On top of that, you're going to get 3 extra pick'em specials this season for everybody who uses promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, on top of all the specials that they're doing site-wide. So please make sure you're taking advantage of that. Work my butt off to get it for y'all. But let's go over and let's look at how changing your starting lineup from, say, 2 flex spots down to 1 flex spot is going to go through and change things. So if you were looking at a league that's a full PPR format where you start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and 2 flexes, we know a couple different things here. We know, 1, generally in that full PPR format, we are going to be wanting to play a wide receiver in those flex spots. 2, on top of this, we know that we need a well-rounded roster top to bottom, right? I mean, if you're going to have to start 2 running backs and up to 4 wide receivers, it's not like you can really just have an exploitative strategy in your fantasy football draft to take advantage of your league settings and to take advantage of your league mates. You have to be well-balanced. I mean, if we're going to go through and look at the pie chart for your expected points scored, if you are just average across every single position, you're going to see about 9.5% of your starting lineup output coming from the tight end position, 16.2% coming from quarterback, 25% coming from running back, and then wide receiver, just with those 2 spots, you're going to be up at 28.1%. Plus, if it's a full PPR format and you want to be playing the wide receivers in the flex spots, you're going to be at about 21.1% there as well. So if that's your style format, you probably want to be hammering in wide receivers early and often because they're going to be making up such a high percentage of your overall offensive scoring on a week-to-week basis that we really want to be strong there. But as we go over and say we take out one of these flex spots, right? Instead of you getting close to 50% of your starting lineup output from just wide receiver, all those other positions are going to become a little bit more important. All of a sudden, running back goes from 25% up to 29% of your starting lineup output. You have quarterback going from 16% to 18%. You have tight end going from about 9.5% up to about 10.5%. So as you remove those flex spots, wide receiver is inherently going to be a little bit less valuable in that format. Now, if you're going to transition over to a non-PPR league, this is going to be even greater exemplified. If you're going to be in a double flex non-PPR format, their wide receivers only going to be making up 24.5% of your starting lineup output. And as we saw previously, generally you want to be planning on going with a running back in your flex. So instead, you're going to be skewed to almost seeing about 45% of your lineup coming from the running back position. But on top of this, you also have to remember, in a non-PPR format, running back, wide receiver, and tight end are all going to score less across the board just because they're not getting points per reception. But you know who this doesn't impact? This doesn't impact quarterback. So all of a sudden, if you lessen the scoring from every other position and keep quarterback the same, quarterback's going to go up to 21.5% of your starting lineup output. If you compare that to the full PPR double flex league, their quarterback was only at 16%. So in your non-PPR format, it's going to be so much important for you to go out there and grab that elite level QB. And then if we're going to be making this a 1 flex non-PPR format, it's going to be even greater exemplified why you need that elite level quarterback, where that elite level quarterback at that point will account for almost 24% of your starting lineup output on a week-to-week basis. So I want to reiterate, the fewer flex spots you have, the more important the onesie positions are going to become. The fewer flex spots you have, the more important quarterback will be, the more important tight end will be, whereas the more flex spots you add in, the more important wide receivers and running backs are inherently going to come. If it's a full PPR format, we'll be skewing towards pushing those wide receivers up. If it's going to be a non-PPR format, we're going to be skewing towards pushing those running backs up. Now, one other thing that we need to be looking at is going to be the amount of teams that are in your league, because we understand that the fall off of positions is not equal across the board, right? If you're going to be playing in a 12-team league, the wide receiver 36 as the base end, low end wide receiver 3 for you isn't going to be that different than a 10-team format where you're going to be looking at, say, the wide receiver 29. However, at the running back position, you actually may see a great drop off from the running back 29 to the running back 26. You see this when we go through and we track the level off that you have in a 10-team league versus a 12-team league. In a 10-team league, the drop-off you're going to have from the running back 10 to the running back 20 is going to be from 15.5 points per game down to 13.1. Down to the running back 30, you're going to be going down to 10.5. So it's a pretty big drop-off if you look at the top end versus that end where you're not really excited about what you'll have in round 7. However, if you're going to be looking at wide receiver, the drop-off isn't that intense. Once you get to wide receiver 20, the wide receiver 20 is 13.8 points per game. Down to the wide receiver 30, that's 12.9. So generally, if you're going to be removing teams from the league, you're going to be more comfortable finding wide receiver depth later on in your draft. In the fewer teams that you have in your league, the more willing you're going to be to go and grab the elite level running backs, an elite level quarterback, and possibly an elite level tight end as well. That's why I say if you're playing in like an 8-team format where you only have one flex spot, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try to take Travis Kelce number 1 overall, right? Just because we want to be exploiting the way that our league is set up. Now, I did go through and do some mock drafts for y'all, and I just wanted to give an idea of what you may be looking at dependent on the format that you're going to be playing in. So say you are in a 12-team PPR league where you start 2 flexes, right? I mean, this is what I make all my rankings for, and I'll show you how you're going to adjust this elsewhere. So if we're in that 12-team PPR format, I really want to stay balanced through the draft, right? So maybe we would go with the double anchor RB. We go Bijan Robinson, Nick Chubb through the first 2 rounds. I mean, they have an ESPN ADP right now of 10.6 and 16.6. Now, we want to follow that up with wide receivers because we know we want to be starting wide receivers in the flex. We know that wide receivers at the top end are going to matter as well. So there, we'll go Chris Olave round 3. We'll follow it up with Calvin Ridley round 4, Christian Watson round 5. We're looking to slam wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. We'll mix in a quarterback here with Trevor Lawrence in round 6 to pair him up with Calvin Ridley. We'll follow that up with getting the Trevor Lawrence double stack with Christian Kirk round 7. And then you've noticed we've taken 4 wide receivers before our third RB. We want to stay balanced in that 12-team PPR format where we have double flex spots. We want to be planning out 4 wide receiver, and then we can just go back and forth there at the end of the draft, right? We can go from DeAndre Swift to Jahan Dotson to Brian Robinson, and we can go well balanced through the rest of it. But if we transition over to a 10-team PPR format with only 1 flex, what do we need to consider? We need to consider 1, that quarterback and tight end scoring is going to be way more important in a format like this than it would have been in that 12-team league where we had 2 flex spots. We also need to consider that wide receiver depth is going to be so much easier to come by overall. So in a draft like this, instead, you probably go ahead and you take Travis Kelce round 1. You follow it up with Nick Chubb round 2. And here, it's very important to go out there and actually grab the elite level quarterback. So we're going to take Jalen Hurts in round 3 instead of waiting like we did previously. Follow that up with Travis Etienne round 4. Yeah, so I don't care about staying balanced in a league like this, right? It's a 10-team PPR format, only 1 flex spot. I'm comfortable we'll be able to find wide receiver depth later on, and that's exactly what we have. After we have our 2 running backs, we have an elite tight end, we have an elite level quarterback. You're still able to get Calvin Ridley round 5. You can still go get Christian Watson round 6. You can get Kenneth Walker round 7, even if we're not done wide receiver, it doesn't matter. You can grab Drake London round 8, Dobbins round 9, Jordan Addison round 10. And what you get with the advantage in a format like this, if you take that elite level tight end and that elite level quarterback as well, at the very end of this style draft, we know we just want to be taking massive swings on upside players, right? So that's why we go through and we add in Jordan Addison, we add in J.K. Dobbins, those guys that are maybe a little bit uncertain, but if they were to hit, they can be true league difference making players in a format like that because the bar is going to be so much higher to actually get into your starting lineup. So I hope that this video was able to help you all out. I'm sure that most people don't talk about the game of fantasy football like this. Personally, this is how I play. I try to make sure that we're taking advantage of the league format that we are in. We understand all the small differences. Now, of course, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. I'll try to answer as many comments as I can in this video. And if you like fantasy football, go down there, subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video. I'll be streaming every single night those Underdog Fantasy drafts. So if you want to get in a draft with us, find that link in the comment section, find it in the description subscription. Promo code FLOCK will get you a 100% deposit match up to $100. Plus, you'll get our 2023 fantasy football rankings, get a free trial to flockfantasy.com. You will also be able to find our 2023 fantasy football draft guide on flockfantasy.com. I worked my butt off to get you all these pick'em specials of Josh Allen more than less than half a passing yard week 1. It's going to be exclusive only for people who use promo code FLOCK on Underdog, as well as the Anthony Richardson site-wide special of more than less than half a passing yard in week 1 as well. I'm going to have 3 Flock-only specials for y'all this year, so please make sure you're taking advantage of that because I worked my butt off to get it for you. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Really appreciate you, and really hope I get a draft with you in a live stream tonight.